Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on New Zealand Sport Radio, with you coming to you at 8 p.m. every Tuesday, which means, yes, it's only 3 and a bit hours to lockdown for us this time. So there we go. And as Arun says in the live chat, who's up for doing a show since we're all home? And yes, we are all going to be at home for the next few days. And joining me from his home is Boa. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. Driving back home, one of the songs which come up on my radio station, How Lucky was, It's the Final Countdown by Europe. So yeah, 3 hours of lockdown. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is safe. Let's do this lockdown properly so we can get the hell out of it. Yeah, good to be on the show. I hope you're well, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm good. And so obviously you've had your drive back. Whereas, do you have a nice dinner?
A short, sharp dinner. It was a bit of a roast. It's a bit cold out where I'm living at the moment, and it's quite windy. So yeah, enjoyed a nice warm roast, and I was quite looking forward to this show actually.
Cool. I've had some. Actually, before I tell you this, I'll just bring Stephen Harris in. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Paul. And good evening, Paul. Great to be on the show as always. Always a privilege and a pleasure, Paul.
Yeah, we're just going through our dinners. And yeah, I've just had some real nice Coromandel mussels this evening.
Nice.
Yes, exactly. Some fresh Coromandel mussels. I didn't a bit of a. So there we are, all blaming you guys up in Auckland on our messenger chat. And then I find, so I'm looking after my kids today because the ex is working a bit further from home, and yeah, guess where she's been working? Coromandel Town. So there we go. So, dearie me. There we go. As Boa said, let's all hope you're all nice and safe. Let's do this lockdown properly, and let's come out of it the other side as quickly as possible and back to normality. As well. And as Simon, good evening, folks. Sorry I'm late. He was at the supermarket. Dearie me, folks. Look, remember, the supermarkets don't run out of food. They don't run out of booze either. So don't worry. You can get. There's no need to rush and zoom in. It will all be okay. But I guess one team that it's not all okay for has been the Wallabies over these last couple of games. Oh, look at that, smooth as, eh? Smooth as.
Well, I have to say, I have to confess, on my way back, I did stop at the bottle store. It's called the Bottle O, actually. There's no one there. I was the only customer, so I had the whole beer chiller to myself. And I was tempted at kind of grabbing a few boxes, but the guy running the shop said, "Look, there's plenty to go. Don't worry." And yeah, what can I say?
Really? So I thought you were going to say you'd emptied it and the next person couldn't have anything.
I'm just looking at Bledisloe store robbed. Okay, but carry on.
Sorry, I talking about the Wallabies. That's what the beer chiller. Yeah, no, the beer chiller was so empty. That's what their form reminded me of. They just didn't have any. But that said. Guys, how many times have we seen this movie before? All Blacks, first up, they have a bit of a scratchy sort of win. Take the foot off the gas pedal, and then everyone gets really cranky, and then all of a sudden, New Zealand's most hated villain is Ian Foster. Fast forward 7 days, oh my God, it's an absolute. All Blacks should be charged for manslaughter in the first degree or something. And fortunately, we had a few stop-start resets. The All Blacks, they did make a few errors in that first quarter. And, the Wallabies, they came to play. They had some, brief shining moments. If not for that, I don't think Dave Rennie would have survived it into the next week. Because, in all reality, the way the All Blacks were looking, had they replicated that for a full 80 minutes, we would have seen 100+ scores. So I think the Wallabies were really lucky that the damage stopped at 57.
I'll tell you what, though, I can see improvement compared to where they were with Cheika. I can see incremental improvements. The problem is for the Wallabies. I think once they start to creep a little bit behind. I think being a young side, and they are a young side, I think a bit of panic actually sets in more than anything else. And I think a team like the All Blacks, I think if you let them play their game, they will open you up, and then the scoreboard pressure basically takes its toll. But I also thought, gee, that long range penalty, I think, literally took the wind out of their sails as well. I mean, so when Damien McKenzie was lining that up, I thought, even with a breeze behind him, I thought that was rather ambitious. But boy, I think from a Wallabies point of view, it almost like it basically took the wind out of them.
It certainly did, and it actually galvanized pretty much the crowd, everyone watching it live, because something really spectacular happened. And Damien McKenzie, he only took two big strides, and gave it a hoof. It only just went over the crossbar. It was a monumental kick, and that just galvanized the All Blacks, because I looked at the stats. Every single carry, there was at least 4 post-contact meters. So every time they were hitting the first contact or the first would-be tackler, they were on average making 4 meters plus. And I think that's what really changed the whole impetus. And once you give the All Blacks a bit of momentum and they start opening you up with that fast ruckery cycle, particularly with Aaron Smith, it was game over. And one thing I do have to say, Steve, is I agree that the Wallabies are a very young side. However, I think with their game plan, they're just getting carried away. They're trying to play this full throttle, playing at 100 miles an hour every single time. They just don't necessarily have the full skill set, not just yet, to be continually and consistently playing that. And what that does is every time they make a mistake, which they did plenty of, the All Blacks just cane you. So I think that just needs to be tweaked a bit, but they are trending in the right direction. They just need to get all these bits and pieces together. And in the pivotal positions, particularly at your first 5 guys like Lola Hea, they just need to really see some significant improvement in skills like distribution, being able to get the ball as fast as they can to the edge.
Two intercept tries, we shouldn't forget, and they were just absolute gifts. And those are real coach killers, for crying out loud. I think they could have played it a little bit tighter, and I agree. Sometimes you might have to kick a little bit more against the All Blacks and hem the All Blacks back down in their territory.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's I disagree with Bo on the 100 points thing. Clearly the All Blacks were the better team, but I guess one of the things we've got to be careful of here. I mean, one of the things I've been harping on about it's on Twitter has been Rassie Erasmus needs to get banned from rugby for his stupid video. But we've said that before, or I've said it before. But also the fact that the rugby we saw in that Lions series between South Africa and the Lions was boring from both teams, right? And I'm very clear about this. It's both teams. It's not just me having the Springboks. But with the Wallabies here, they were just trying to play too much rugby, as you say, Bart. I mean, the All Blacks get in front because of an intercept by Richie. By Rico, wasn't it? Who got the first?
Yeah, Rico Ioane.
On 4 minutes. Wallabies came back well. McDermott, I thought, was having a good game, and Kellaway is looking really comfortable at this level of rugby. The All Blacks get held out. They go for sticks and miss. So the Wallabies did well there. Then the Wallabies, they fake a tap and go in front of the posts. They fake sort of kicking sticks, and that ends up being they knock it on, and suddenly Akiri breaks downfield and it's a try. Then we have the Hunter Basami trying to take on Will Jordan and trying to burn him. But you're not going to burn Will Jordan. And then straight after that, we get a try by Aaron Smith, sees a 2-on-1 with Cody Taylor. And it's those sort of things that, as you say, knocks the wind out of the Wallabies, and then it blows out. But I think for that first, until that kind of Pasami try, and then obviously the DMAC kick comes a couple of minutes afterwards. The Wallabies aren't that far away. It's giving away counter-attacking opportunities that the All Blacks taking very well, but I don't think they're as bad as you say. They are improving, and I don't think that it really is that 100 odd points there.
I do think they're playing really good rugby. I think back to some of the early days of Checker, where they were just trying to basically bash it. It was just carry after carry after carry, and and I can see what they were trying to do. They had the theory of holding on to the ball, keeping it away from the All Blacks, forcing them not to play rugby. The thing with the All Blacks, I think no matter who the All Blacks play, whether they're playing the Springboks, England, whoever, they force you to try and play a bit of rugby. Now, unless you've got a game plan that's pretty well down packed, where you can slow the game right down, put pressure through a high kicking game, through putting pressure on line out and scrum, I think that's probably the only way you can shut the All Blacks down. That's why, unfortunately, heading back to the British Lions and South African series, I think that's why we saw that style of rugby. I don't think any of those two teams were really, at the end of the day, prepared to play a lot of rugby. They were just prepared to grind, and it came down to whoever made the least mistakes at the end of the day.
There was one set play I have to point out. I think it was the 21st minute. Wallabies had a scrum. Was on the 10 meters in the attacking half. Banks joins the line at depth, and he puts a grubber kick right through left corner, just in front of the try line, 10 meters out from touch, and that really forced the All Blacks into what I call a 50-50 situation. Are we going to play the ball? Are we going to let it roll away? And it didn't roll away, and it just hung in go. And that meant if you force it down, it's going to be a goal line dropout. So that sort of tactic from a set play is what you need to continually try and do, and put pressure on that All Black back three, where they have to actually try and run it out from almost the goal line. But soon as you start moving away from tactics like that, trying to run everything, that's when the mistakes start coming in. So I think from a tactical point of view, there were some significant misfires from the Wallabies. They do have the players to execute a game plan where it revolves around kicking. They just didn't do it well enough. And of course, the other thing I have to say is, with the Wallabies, in this game, we had 19 minutes. That's right, 19 minutes of scrum resets. That's almost a quarter where there was no active play. So hence, that's why I said, if all that was taken out of the equation, and also the All Blacks did make a few errors, we would have seen a very, very different scoreline. So that's the reason why I say that the Wallabies were very lucky. But they did have their moments. They're certainly trending in the right direction. I hope they can persist with it, but there just needs to be some tactical savviness, and they need to be planning so that they don't make this mistake again and be on the wrong side of another hiding.
Now, there's a couple of things from this. Actually, let's talk about the Wallabies first, then, and the scrapping of the Ghetto rule. Now, Stephen, you've been a big advocate of this, that the Wallabies should pick players from all over the world. So you're happy with what they're doing?
If it needs to strengthen a Wallaby side, yes, that's the upside. The downside, it may weaken their Super Rugby side. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. But boy, when you see the likes of the Arnold brothers and Skelton playing in France and playing really, really good rugby, and these are terribly big men. No offense to the locks that the Wallabies have at the moment, but that's probably lock. If you take Isaac Rodder out, that's probably lock 5, 6, and 7 that we're basically watching in this Wallaby side at the moment. Listen, I think take your chances on Super Rugby. Hopefully the fact that Super Rugby will be based around Oceania might be enough just to say to those players, you know what, let's stay in our own country and don't look so much about the rugby. Given what's happening with COVID, it just might be enough to keep these guys a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, I think that's to me that's the real problem if they go down this route, a bit like South Africa has done already, of selecting. It doesn't matter where you are, is that the Super Rugby side is going to drop, and then what kind of attendance, what kind of aspiration are you going to get from local kids wanting to play rugby if they see the Super Rugby sides getting beaten all the time? So it's a bit of, but so I think trying to keep their players in country is a good point. But you say that it seems to be locked. I don't think there's any other position. I mean, sure, Karevi is about to head the thing has obviously been available for the sevens, and that will come back into it. You've got Korobeti about to head overseas, but on the whole, apart from locks, there aren't wallabies, that many wallabies overseas who are demanding or holes in the side. But you're right, they do need to strengthen their locks piece. Unfortunately, I just hope it doesn't involve basically the Super Rugby side losing all their players.
Yeah. You can just see that Whitelock and Retallick just had a field day, and that was probably Rhodey Retallick since his return, probably his best game. You can just see that he's building at every moment. I think the great thing that's happening for the All Blacks, they are building some proper depth in their loose forward, and Akira Ioane, man, I think he's found his feet at this level of rugby, and we may have found the six that the All Blacks have been looking for a very long time. And I think whilst Dalton Papali has been an admirable deputy, I think what Sam Cane will bring back into this team is physicality. I suppose the big question, will they relinquish the captaincy from Sam Whitelock and give it back to Sam Cane? Me personally, I think I'd leave that captaincy with Sam Whitelock at this point in time.
I fully agree. I think Sam Whitelock, his last 6 games, outstanding form, and he's picked up that same Super Rugby form, just rolled right into it. And for me, the clear cut difference between Sam Whitelock of the recent past and previous is he just knows when to get involved, and also he doesn't shy away from the real brute hard work, the carries, making sure that if it means you're gonna win the close quarters, getting those 1-2 meter gains up front, and he's willing to do that. And I think all that experience has taught him that sometimes you just got to get stuck in, use the sandpaper before you unleash the silk. And I think all the junior players are now starting to see that, and they're following that leader. So bang on Stephen Harris. I wouldn't change the captaincy. One thing I have to say is with regards to the overseas players and the Wallabies, short term, they're going to have to scrap this so that they can limit some of this damage control. But I think long term, they need to look at revamping their local competitions, much like what we have here with the NPC, so that it does not take away the pathway for some of the homegrown players. And look, guys, the reality is there is enough talent in Australia, but they are losing a lot of players to other codes such as, the AFL, basketball, so on and so forth. So that's the main root cause as to why Union is actually losing out. And that needs to be addressed first and foremost. Once that is done, I think long term, some of their prospects will be very, very good. But short term, I agree, they need to scrap the ghetto law.
They if you think about it, Australia fights above their weight. What have they won? Two World Cups. They've been in 4 World Cup finals, I think it is, in total. When you think of their player base, and they probably lose their best athletes to either NRL or AFL, they bat really well. And I mean to say, I know our good friend John O'Connor has been sort of lamenting South Africa's disposition in and around COVID, and South Africa haven't played for a couple of years. But we've got to remember that in Australia, rugby is not the number one game, but we know what they can be capable of if they get there, if they're somehow able to have a good crop of, say, 30 players who can play Test rugby, because I think at the moment they probably, if you really and truthfully look through their side at the moment, there are probably guys, Michael Hooper, arguably probably running around as the best 7 in the world at the moment. But you go through the rest of that team in terms of ultimate world class players, there's not a hell of a lot there. But there are guys like Tate McDermott, who I think is now standing up as the number 1 halfback in Australia at the moment. Lolosio, the longer those two stay together and get their form together, the better they'll go. They've got a whole crop of midfielders, the likes of Paisami, Ikato, Paya, and also, of course, Karevi, who's coming in. For them, the problem is a little bit like the All Blacks problem for the last few years, where the All Blacks couldn't work out who their best midfielders. They need to settle on that midfield, because at the moment, I think Banks is probably their best fullback. Callaway, to me, has been a revelation, especially after watching him play for Counties Manukau last year. Man, I didn't think he had that sort of game in him, but boy, he scored 2 tries that have been well finished and hasn't looked out of place at that level of rugby. But if you were picking a World 15, a second World 15, a third World 15, how many of those players would make that current team?
No, you're very, very true. I do think the NRC and the scrapping of the NRC has been a massive problem. It will be a massive problem for Australia going forwards, and it's why we've seen there's about 5 or 6 Australian rugby players who are playing now in the NPC this year. So because there's no rugby for them in Australia at this time, so how do you develop your game?
Oh, exactly. To go one step further, there might even be a lot more, Paul. You've obviously got the likes of Sam Kidd, who basically came home to play for Northland, but on Saturday playing for Auckland B was Robbie Abel, who's been around the traps in New Zealand here. He's been with Northland, he's been with Auckland, but he's also been with the Brumbies, been with the Rebels, and he's also been with I think maybe the Reds. I stand to be or the Waratahs. Beg your pardon. But Albert Ane, who's also played for the Brumbies and the Rebels, was also playing for Auckland B on Saturday. And you go, seriously?
Yep. But having the NRC revived would be good, but I just don't see how it's actually. It just doesn't seem to be on their radar currently. By the way, on the ghetto law, they're looking at opening it up but not making it entirely open. So that it's they're going to look at it, but it's not. They'll still, I think, base their team around home-based players with a few extras where they see the need. But even those players that have gone overseas have been home-based, have learned their codats in Australia, then gone overseas. It's not like Scotland going and getting Sean Maitland or WP Nell, all these sort of players. They've all got to come through Australia at some point before heading overseas in that one. But when you're talking about locks, it's very true that Aussie rules, the body size or the body shape that you're looking at for lock is perfect for Aussie rules, and that's where they're going to go initially. So, yeah, it is a problem, a unique problem for the ARU. Bringing it closer to back home, then, and Simon says that one thing he found annoying was that TJ was allowed to play for the All Blacks, and he hasn't played an NPC match yet. But then again, so is Bowden Barrett, so is Brodie Retallick. TJ seems to be the one that's getting the flak boys, not the other guys. Sure, his contract situation was slightly different, but at the end of the day, he went to Japan, has come back, and has gone straight back into the side, just in the same way that the Brodie and Bowden has. So, do you think it's a bit unfair, the flak that TJ is getting?
So let me answer that question, Simon. Look, that's a very valid answer, and I'll tell you where all this is stemming from. So this is all to do with high performance with NZR, i.e. the All Blacks. I can understand fully well why TJ was brought into the fold. Foster and his co-coaches, they wanted the experience. They wanted to make sure that they had the Bledisloe in the bag, right? But what's actually being sold to the general public through NZR with the revamping of our NPC, with the revamping of our grassroots rugby and all these advertising campaigns is that there's a very clear-cut pathway to getting your foot through the door into high performance, i.e. playing club rugby, then playing NPC, playing super rugby, and then playing test rugby. So if you kind of parachute in laterally from wherever you may be, in this instance, TJ Perinara was in Japan, in the eyes of the public, and it makes perfect sense, he needs to get some form under his belt. The obvious option is to play some NPC rugby. But because high performance will tinker with this whole process, they will pick and choose who, when, and what they want to do. Now, that is at odds with this whole grandeur of vision they've sold to the rugby-loving public and community, that these guys have to go through this path. So this is where the issue is, ladies and gentlemen. So long as we have situations like that, where we have X-Factor superstars going overseas, doing their sabbatical and coming back, we will continue to see that. Now, next year we have... is Damien McKenzie, so McKenzie's off. So, he'll be in a similar situation. The reality is, when you go and play in Japan, it's a far lesser intensity. So when you come back into New Zealand, you have to repatriate yourself with the pace, with the level of contact, and with the level of rugby IQ you need. So it is a bit of a gamble when you fast-track players who haven't had that form, the build-up into your test side. But on the other hand, guys like TJ, they have enough experience to come and do that. The good news was they weren't really needed, because by the time TJ came on board, the game was just done, dusted, and buried. But I think a little bit more transparency from high performance to the general public and rugby community in New Zealand will go a long way, kind of, easing all the kerfuffle and the noise around situations such as this.
Yeah, I think the intensity up in Japan is pretty high. The speed of the game is fast, but the physicality isn't there. It's a different type of it's a different style of game that they play. But from what I understand, from sort of hearing from people like Wayne Smith, etc., that the pace of the game up there is perhaps even faster than here, but it doesn't have the intensity and the physicality. I think we saw that with Brody Retallick in the first couple of tests that he played, and that he's got used to it now. Now, and Simon makes a good point that Barrett and Brody had permission to go on sabbatical, whereas TJ's contract came to an end and has then had a new contract signed. To me, that's a bit of semantics at the end of the day. And he says, look, he wouldn't think that RTS should go straight into playing. Well, true, but he hasn't got the skill set to do it. He has to prove the skill set. He hasn't proved, whereas TJ has got the runs on the board. He's proven he can play at this level.
Yeah, there'll be some guys that'll slot back into this All Black team, and I suggest they'll need them, especially when we get at the Springboks. And I'm talking about the likes of Joe Moody and Olfatu Rangafasi, because as seen in that series, the Springboks v the Lions, you need to scrum, across the 80 minutes of the game, especially in a close contest, if it comes down to officials blowing up on penalties. So listen, if you've got somebody who you're going to bring back and he's got the experience, and you've got somebody who's got no experience, man, I'd pull a TJ in around. And besides, I probably think the next halfback in the pecking order, I think we know that Bryn Hall's probably going to be heading off seas next year. Mitchell Drummond's been thereabouts. I think if you probably had somebody like a Folau Whakatava fit and ready to go, he may have been the next cab off the rank, that they might bring a new guy in. But I think it's best to bring an experienced head back into the team, especially if you want to make a statement. The All Blacks weren't at their best in 2020, and I think Foster is just basically trying to eliminate a few bad memories from 2020.
And Ellie said, yeah, transparency in rugby, good luck with that. And very true. We don't get much transparency in rugby. Us here or at New Zealand Sport Radio, we're trying to improve that. So if you'd like to get a little bit of transparency, then there is an interview I've done with Campbell, who is the CEO of Northland, about grassroots rugby. So go check that out. That's on our Facebook, YouTube, and podcast. Today, I had a chat with Aaron Lawton, who is the CEO of Counties Manukau, and I will be again. That will be published on Thursday. So have a look at that one. And I've also got Mike Rogers from Bay of Plenty saying he'll have a chat with me as well. Also, I've been in touch with New Zealand Rugby because apparently they are doing a review of the future of rugby clubs, and I found the guy who's heading that up. He has palmed me off to his media person, so we'll see if we get or his communications person. Sorry, let's get the terminology right. So let's see if she'll put me in touch for an interview around that about the future of rugby clubs. So, but we're trying here to do that, and for us to do that, you know what, folks, it does take a lot of time and effort, and we really could do with your support. So head over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to help me bring you that transparency, those views with those administrators in rugby, and a nice old grin on your face there, Stephen.
Yeah, if I didn't know any different, Paul, I'd almost swear that Paul's been getting some media training over the last week. Some of his segues and his transitions into other subjects, I've got to say, are very, very smooth. So I absolutely applaud that, Paul. Very, very classy.
Yeah.
And thank you, Stephen. And LB also did ask us about the question about the Springboks versus New Zealand, where that game's going to be. Right. Let's be honest, folks. It's not. No. I think we do know. We can make an educated guess on this one, folks. Quite clearly, Australia, particularly in New South Wales, has admitted defeat to the Delta variant of COVID, I believe. And so the travel bubble with Australia is not going to reopen this year. That basically means that the All Blacks will not be coming back to play rugby in New Zealand this year, and therefore all of the Rugby Championship games will happen in Australia. We already know the Argentinian ones will, and effectively the Bok ones will as well. They will probably happen in Perth and in Western Australia, but I think it's fairly safe to say that New Zealand is not opening its borders until we're the 80-odd% vaccinated, which isn't going to happen until the end of the year. So sorry, folks, no more rugby or no more international rugby in New Zealand. It is good news to hear that they are looking at how they can try and get the Wallaroos versus games against the Black Ferns to happen, and if not, we'll see a repeat of the Black Ferns versus the New Zealand Barbarians like last year, before they're trying to send the Black Ferns off to Europe on a November tour. But I think it's safe to say, I wouldn't put any money on the All Blacks playing in New Zealand again this year.
No, very, very unlikely. Just with obviously what's happened today, it's just going to set everything back that much further. And you're right. I mean, 80% vaccination rate. That's right now. It's a very long way off. So yeah, bit disappointing being a rugby fan not to see the All Blacks play here. It's a shame that the Wallabies didn't agree to play all three games here. Had that been the case, it would be probably a very bad tour for the Wallabies. They would have probably got another thumping. But then hindsight's a wonderful thing. We're in lockdown now, so that would have impacted things as well. So looks like Optus Stadium in Perth is the most likely scenario. However, all this is COVID dependent. So let's hope that it doesn't spread to Western Australia. And the reality is, any rugby is better than no rugby. So let's hope and pray that.
You clearly didn't watch any of the Lions tour or Test matches.
I was talking about the championship. I was talking about the championship. I was excluding. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That just put me to sleep. That was like watching paint dry and grass grow all in one. So yeah, let's just wait to see what happens. But most likely Optus Stadium. And the good news is the South Africans might actually have quite a few fans in Western Australia.
Yep.
So might actually, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, guys, because South Africa have been through a bit of a tough time with this whole COVID regulation. So for them to go away, play somewhere, and if they get a bit of fans coming in, it's not a bad thing at all. And it'll actually test the All Blacks. So this little tour we are going to Australia, I think, if history tells you anything, if statistics tell you anything, and we've traditionally always struggled in Western Australia, this is going to be a very testing time of Ian Foster's career, because I'll tell you this: 57 will be very quickly forgotten if you have a bad half first up in Western Australia. So let's hope that's not the case.
So Scott Barrett, you're lucky because during the Rugby Championship, they are having the 20-minute red card rule. So that is just for the Rugby Championship, folks, not for any other forms of rugby globally.
Paul, I was going to say, whilst the All Black performance on Saturday night was aesthetically pleasing, something that wasn't aesthetically pleasing, and it's, to me, a real ball drop by the New Zealand Rugby Union, was the choice of venues for this Wallaby All Black test on the weekend. It'd be remiss of us not to mention it, but I just thought it was a horrendous mistake to basically try and milk this venue again. After all, basically this previous venue or the previous week had been booked out, and obviously they got close to a full house at that game. But to basically to go to that same well again was really disappointed, especially when you took the game away from Wellington. You could have taken it down, 120 odd K down the road to Hamilton, and I'm pretty sure you would have seen a big crowd there, because I think probably really the only downside, the only thing for people watching around the world would have just been the disappointment of just not seeing a full house for what really was a very entertaining game.
Yeah, so quickly, just folks, to the background on that. So LB asked, why did they move from Wellington? Well, the game was moved forward a week, so there was than it was going to be, I believe. So that meant that the Cape Tin down, or Sky Stadium down in Wellington had an event on called Beervana, which basically is a beer festival that happens on the concourse. And I've heard multiple people say that it's a horrible venue for a beer festival beyond a concourse. But anyway, basically the stadium was booked and so not available. Hence they couldn't be held in Wellington. So what we had was in Bledisloe Cup 1 a crowd of 47,000 in Eden Park, and in Bledisloe 2 a crowd of 25,000 in there. So a drop off of 22,000 people. Now that 25,000 is still a bigger crowd than you would have got at the 20,000 you would have fitted into FMG Stadium, or the 18,000 I think it is you get into the Orangery down in Christchurch, for example. So from that point of view, even though it looked like a half-empty stadium, which it was, the crowd was still bigger than you would have got at those locations. So from a, I think it was that maybe the venue wasn't necessarily a mistake, but I think the way they went about selling tickets was, I think they had basically three options. One was take it to somewhere like Nelson and do a double header with an NPC game, for example. Number two was do what they did, or number three was to give away / reduce ticket prices. Now, the reason they didn't do that is, I guess, a couple of fold. One, they don't want to devalue the All Blacks product. Hence, if someone pays $25 for a grandstand seat 1 year, they're going to always want to pay that price. Plus, also, all the people who went the week before who had to pay $115 for that ticket, would they have complained about would they complain about the reduced ticket price the following week? I don't know. A couple of points here saying that the FMG is 25,000. It is when the stadium is fully open. Unfortunately, due to earthquake issues, one of the stands isn't fully open anymore. So that means that the capacity is down to 20,000. But yeah, so to me, I think taking it to someone like Nelson, probably not Palmerston North, would have been, to me, would have been they've had experience of hosting a Hurricanes game. So they've had they've got recent big match kind of experience or logistics to put in place. That's where I think I would have liked to have taken it to. But yeah, I can see you wanting to get in there, Stephen.
I was going to say, on saying that, I think if the All Blacks were playing the Springboks in 2 Saturdays from now, I think it would be a sellout. And yeah, sometimes you can try and milk something for what it is. I think the public are not stupid as well. They probably know that the All Blacks have still got the wood on this Australian side, but there'd be nothing better than smacking the Springboks in the eye. Certainly, it'd make our rugby chat room a much more comfortable place if that was to happen, because I think silence is the best form of revenge, if you know what I mean, guys. But hey, Paul, I just noticed the time, and it might almost be that time to start to move along to Farah Cup, I reckon, eh?
Before we do, Stephen Harris, I don't think that day is too far away, because I have this sneaky feeling brewing away that there's going to be a massive reality check in waiting when these two teams do finally meet, because I've just looking at all the stats and how everything was played out, particularly in the Lions series. I think it was just a big false dawn, and against relentless front football and pace. I would love to see the Springboks try those same tactics against the All Blacks. And remember the last time the Boks played All Blacks up it was North Harbour Stadium, and it was on the back of something very similar. We all saw what happened. So history, I feel, will repeat itself again, albeit in Perth.
Don't mention that, because it was a record scored, and we don't want to offend anybody. Okay.
Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just got an email through saying about whether I can work or not under this. So apparently, I'm an essential worker going forward, so I will actually be at work the rest of this week. So there we go, folks.
Don't forget your mask. Don't forget your mask, your gloves, your hazmat suit, your face shield, everything. Just let's do this. Let's do this right. Let's get out of this lockdown. It's just killing us. So
I don't need a hazmat suit, and I don't need a screen. But I do have to wear a mask and gloves apparently. So there we go. So I've got to find myself some gloves ahead of Friday. So anyway, just a side issue, folks. There, but as Stephen says, yes. So you want to start with Farah Cup, Stephen?
Yeah, I do. Listen, probably quite a few one-sided games this weekend, but definitely in that championship division, it's the Cyclones that are making all the play at the moment. And once again, they just basically rocked up and were far too strong for North Harbour, 34 points to 0. And once again, I think they're probably putting a line in the sand that they are the team to beat in the championship division, Paul.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another big win, as you say, by Hawke's Bay as well. They've already lost 2 games this season, so 2-2. But yeah, Manawatu are clearly looking like the form team. Northland looking like the probable team to meet them in the final there. But Northland have already lost to the Cyclones, so they'll know what the task is ahead of them in that one.
Yep.
In the Premiership, though, oh my word, what a cracking game I got to see. Go on.
I know. I actually saw this game as well, and I've got to say, in both divisions of Farah Cup and Bunnings NPC, probably the game of the weekend. I mean to say, that Waikato team is a good team, but Wellington just did not go away. But unfortunately, just didn't really know, little things in rugby. It just really came down to collecting a kickoff at the end of the day, and Wellington failed to do it. But in between times, there was some great action in this game, Paul.
There was, and you know what? It's not going to work again, is it? I'm going to have all my videos in the wrong format, so I can't bring up the bloody. Oh, dearie me. But yes, so I was at this game. Obviously, I've got post-match interviews. They will be posted up on our Facebook page after this. I'm halfway through processing, but yeah, the head coach Zach for Wellington was just like, we just need to play the full 80 minutes. We need to. We just switched off in a couple of situations, such as that final restart, not claiming it. One of the Waikato tries. Look, their woman was there ready to put it down behind the line, but she was just a little bit too casual doing it.
Bit of controversy as well in that, Paul. You kind of they looked at it a couple of times, and it basically looked like they were touching the ball the same time. But you're dead right; she just took too long to get her hands down on the ball. And at the time, I actually thought momentum was changing. Wellington were looking the better side. They were getting on the outside of Waikato, and they were coming home. And really, it was a try that came completely against the run of play. But credit to Wellington. They came back and scored, and the kicker knocked over the conversion under pressure, which levelled the score. And then, of course, you kind of looked at the clock, and it was actually on television at home. It was saying it had gone well past the 80 minutes, and I thought, yeah, they're going to blow it up, and they'll share the. I think probably if they'd shared the points, it probably wouldn't have been a bad result, Paul. But it just goes to show, man, nail your basics, and I think it's the second week in a row. I think counties against Waikato the previous week, losing a line out after the siren had pretty much gone, and Wellington basically scores. So they pretty much had what they did to counties Manukau last week. They had it done to them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, last week was 26-25. Wellington over counties Manukau, with Wellington scoring in the 82nd minute. So yeah, you're right. Exactly this. The reverse happened to Wellington this week. Also, we had a close game between Counties and Auckland Storm, 10-13. So Counties going down 2 weeks on the bounce to really small score lines, which and again, it was a 70th minute try that saw Auckland win that one as well. So yeah, Counties maybe they have lost a couple this year, but boy, the fact that you'd say they've got a losing record, 1-2, lost 3, but boy, oh boy, those losses have been close in this. So you got to say that even though they've got a losing record, as long as they get into those finals, they really could be anyone and cause some real upsets.
Yeah, Canterbury, of course, though, but Paul still the benchmark and a comfortable enough win over Bay of Plenty, was it? Yeah, I think they're still the team to beat, and so much of their play revolves around Kendra Coxedge as well. Really, really good kicking game. But speaking of kicking game, it's one of the real big improvements I've seen in the women's game this year is actually the kicking. I think the ladies have finally realised that you don't have to try and play a whole lot of rugby. You can go and play the rugby in other people's territory. But what I am enjoying about the FPC is just the unearthing of some really good new players out on the scene there. We see all these guns that run around for the New Zealand Sevens team, but it's great to see so much talent coming through.
Yep. No,
one of the things I have to say, gentlemen, is particularly the women's game, particularly in the elite space, i.e. Farah Palmer Cup. There's been a lot of focus on the coaching side of things. So we're actually starting to see more coaches being facilitated and fast-tracked into the coach development, NZR High Performance Coach Development Program. So that's why you're seeing a more tactical game. And also, I've got to say something about that game with the Waikato woman and the Wellington Pride. I mean, look, yes, there were lapses in basics, but it just all made for great theatre. And I think it was a great advertisement for women's rugby. And if you actually want to bring the punters to the turnstiles and eyeballs on the TV screens, those sort of games, and styles make fights, styles make matchups. It was, there were periods where a team went to sleep. The try which wasn't given. I had a very close look at it. I would have given it. But look, it all made for great viewing. So for people who are new to the game, who want to get involved in the game, and who want some of the the younger girls, the children getting involved in the game, that was a fantastic advertisement. So whilst the coaches might say, yeah, look, we can't afford to switch off, I think it was a wonderful thing. It just made for this great, fantastic, photo finish. And I loved it. What can I say?
As long as every venue has a defibrillator machine for coaches with heart conditions at the end of games, because quite frankly, mate, I don't know if it'd do anything for my heart.
It was it was a brilliant game to watch and interview players afterwards and coaches. So do I say that those will go up on the Facebook page this evening. The other thing though, and talking about coaching in this level, people go, oh well, look, the standard isn't as high. Well, okay, a number of things here. Number one, they're not professionals. They're not full-time players in the same way that a lot of some of the men are. And secondly, they don't have the same coaching resources. I remember having a chat now to one of the Canterbury players. Now this might, I can't remember if this was last year or the year before, but they were like, "Oh, we've had a scrum coach for the first time this year." I was like, "Pardon?" And then I started talking to the head coach afterwards about and say, "Hey, look, I hear you've got a scrum coach. That's fantastic." He's like, "Yes, he's volunteering." You're like, "Whoa, okay." And you think of a men's team and go, "What? You don't have a scrums coach? Where's if?" So the difference in level of coaching and just raising that level of coaching will make the game a lot better. And so it's good to hear that it's heading in that direction. I would still imagine that that they don't have a full paid up, every province doesn't have a full paid up coaching squad in the same way that the men do in that.
No, of course, long way to go. But what we're actually seeing, Paul, is at all levels of the game, we're actually seeing more female coaches and male coaches enter at all age grades and varying ranks, wanting to coach the women's game. So I think that's a huge plus. And what I'm finding is particularly with the senior to elite level coaches, the Wahine are far more receptive and actually want to learn some of the skills which are taken for granted, particularly in the men's game. So they're focusing more on skills, being able to play a more tactical game. Hence why we see players like Kendra Coxedge. In my view, she's one of the best rugby players, both male and female, on the planet at the moment, because you're creating players who are skill-based, who have a better idea of what game management is all about, and that just filters down right through to the age grades. And we see some of the younger girls playing the game, wanting to be the next Kendra Coxedge. Pretty simple logic.
And I think there'll be a little injection as well from some of the girls that were over in Tokyo at the Olympics, would have come out of MIQ. And I think they were released on, might have been when it was Monday night. That was last night. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these girls get released into the respective provinces.
Yeah, I've got to remember that the demands of 7s and 15s are different. I remember talking to Barrington last year, which was playing for Taranaki, and she was saying she had to put on weight to play 15s because she was too small and didn't have the muscle from playing 7s, because the demands of the game are different. So we'll see if some of them, so if you saw them playing last year in 15s and think, hey, they'll be at that level straight away, they might not be, because the demands are different between two games, folks, before you have unrealistic expectations of some of the players.
Yeah, and gentlemen, with what's happening, and particularly with what's happened in the Olympics, we're actually going to see a lot more specialization in the women's game, where you will see players specialize 4-7. So we're not going to have that hybrid sort of co-mingling. And that is going to be a significant pattern in the development of the women's game, particularly here in New Zealand. I
think we've already had that. I mean, you look at a bunch of the sevens players, and you ask and say, okay, how many Farah Palmer Cup games they played, and until last year they hadn't. Right? It was only because of COVID and the fact they couldn't go on a HSBC series that they were released for 15s. Otherwise, they don't. They don't touch 15s. Some of them will come back to 15s for Rugby World Cup. We do have Rugby World Cup next year. I mean, obviously, I've gone blank. Northern lady. Rugby player.
Crystal Murray.
No. Who plays sevens currently?
Tyler Nathan Wong, Portia Woodman.
Portia Woodman, there we go. Portia Woodman clearly has come back for each of the Rugby World Cups and has played and has been big in both teams. But your other players quite often are not don't cross over. She's one of the few actually that does in that point of view. So, and I've forgotten who I did an interview with someone from Bay of Plenty, and it was her debut in Pro Palmer Cup. She says, "Yeah, I've not played 15s for 6 years because I've been playing 7s the whole time." So yeah, no, it is it has been specialised. Last year was the exception. And this year, some of them may come back because they're trying to get into the Rugby World Cup, but otherwise, I wouldn't expect them to come back into NPC, to be honest. Sorry, FPC. So NPC, counties, oh dearie me, in a bit of trouble. Harbour getting the win there, which is good for them to get their first win of the season. But yeah, counties, their head coach really was very upset after that one, and so you'll be able to hear how upset when I put the video up of my interview with him. Unfortunately, he has, unfortunately for counties, he's been announced now that Ross Filippo is heading over to Harlequins next at the end of the season.
Two or three quick points out of that game. You know what? You get 3 points on offer in an arm wrestle. You take them every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Simple as that. You know, that game was never going to be an open game on a sort of dewy night on down at Ecolite Stadium. Other key factors for me, I thought the two Bryn Hall and Bryn Gatlin, I think they managed that game well enough. Bryn Hall especially, you could even hear through the mics, a lot of talking from the halfback, keeping that organisational factor going for North Harbour, and of course they get one opportunity to score a try and they nail it. Listen, full credit to Moses Leo, who was basically making his full debut. He's a boy out of Takapuna. He was the outstanding centre in Takapuna, North Harbour Club Rugby last year. He's been played out of position, but I watched him all night, got a bit of time for this kid, chased every kick and basically put a lot of pressure on the receiver. And he had one glimpse with his attacking game, brilliant thrust with his pace, and of course the offload. But boy, you got to give Sean Stevenson some credit for taking that pass. Unbelievable skills to take it at pace. And really, that was the story from the Counties Manukau point of view. Their best player, and I'm still scratching my head why he wasn't the starting number 8 the week before, and that was Hoskins Satutu, showed his class on the night. And guys, I think that virtually sums that game up.
I just want to think about these two sides have got quite a lot of young players coming in, and quite a lot of debutants this year with little experience. Yeah, you've mentioned one, but I mean the kicker again playing out of position. Halliday, who's actually a fly half normally or fullback, but playing on the wing. Another young guy playing out of position. So yeah, I think two sides have got lots of young players in it.
You can kick a rugby ball, that's for sure, Paul.
Yeah, for me the biggest difference was the level of skill in the catch and pass. If you actually, I cut some video and was looking at how the North Harbour boys were doing it. You know, you had guys like Bryn Gatlin who could actually catch the ball with their fingertips and good strong base, the hips, moving the ball nice and crisp. And particularly that pass on a wet night, Sean Stevenson, all that experience, caught it just slightly behind his shoulders, but he didn't stop his momentum forward. He hit the ball at pace. It was all over. But if you look at the Counties boys, number of occasions, the passes were loopy. They were a lot slower. And frankly speaking, it wasn't up to NPC standards. So that, for me, was the biggest clear-cut difference. And, of course, as you rightly mentioned, Mr. Harris, the Bryn show, I think the game management was fantastic. And particularly Bryn Gatlin, his game management, he is your quintessential tradesman at NPC level. He's so good. He understands which part of the field you need to be playing the ball. He understands the resources, his teammates. And he's the sort of guy, you know, if you're a forward, he's your dream first five because he gives you so much meters where you can kind of cruise in from stoppage to stoppage. And he gets you playing your best footy in the right part of the field. So I think Bryn Gatlin, for me, that was a very simple but virtuoso performance.
Yep. Tasman edged Auckland 16-11. I'll be honest, I haven't seen this one. But Perry Parkinson, yellow card after 80 minutes. Too late. Too little too late from the referee there, maybe. Yeah, I've not seen this one, but it looks like, oh, wow, a comeback win. Auckland leading 6-11 at half-time and didn't score a point in the second half. Jeez.
Yeah, beautiful day down in out of Trafalgar Park in Nelson. But, boy, I think for this Auckland team, a little bit of a missed opportunity here. And speaking of opportunities, we're probably giving Harry Plummer a whole lot of credit for his kicking performance the week before against Canterbury, but and even what you might call stellar conditions, just missing a couple of key opportunities. But there were times Auckland, they seemed to be getting it together. They were able to put some really, really good facets together in this game, boy.
Yeah, certainly. It was just lack of execution. And for the manpower they had, it was very, very, very disappointing. And I have to say, if you're bang on the money there, right? I mean, first up, you get an opportunity like that to topple a team like Tasman at home, you've got to take it with both hands. So I think Coach Alama Remia would be really, really disappointed. One thing I have to say, with the DMAC penalty, 59 out, hopefully all these coaches and playmakers and players in the NPC have taken note that when you get a chance, take the points. Get ahead on the points, on the scoreboard, treat it like a final, treat it like a knockout game, get ahead, play the clock, play smart rugby, take the points. So I think that's one area. There are a number of opportunities where, given that on the back of a good kicking performance, Harry Plummer had ample opportunity, but they just chose to put it into touch, and then surprise, surprise, they screw it up quite literally, and they give possession back into Tasman. Tasman quality side, great game management, and they just they hung in there. They're like that pit bull terrier. They just didn't want to go away. It wasn't the prettiest win, but end of the day, a W is a W, and winning over a side like Auckland, fantastic result for Tasman.
Oh, that game, and like Auckland had the breeze in the first half, and probably played enough of the game in the right territory, and of course took an opportunity from a really good set piece play off the back of the line out, bent the line really, really well, and and finished it well, and probably 11. What was it, 11-3, I think it was, up at halftime. Just probably wasn't really enough points to put scoreboard pressure on Tasman. And if you leave the door open for a team like Tasman, they'll basically take it. Guys who are normally quite reliable. Rayasi probably didn't have his best game either, but I must admit I've actually been really impressed with Jonathan Ruru, who's seems to have carried that form over from Super Rugby.
Well, he's wanting to get involved. He's wanting to play. And again, with those sparks of energy, there were two very kickable points, two kickable penalty goals in the first half. And had those two been slotted, it would have been 18 points. It would have been a different result. So again, it goes back to do the simple basics, right? You get an opportunity at goal, kick it, go, take the points. Take the points.
Throw in the conversion that was the try just before halftime by Rayasi was scored mid-22 and sort of goalposts. You've got to knock those points over. You're leading at halftime by 13 points to 11, and I think once Tasman sort of scored, and then Tasman hit right back just before halftime, 16-11, and you just thought, gee, Auckland would have to play some half in the second half, even though it took Tasman until about the 59th minute to basically level it up and take the lead.
Yep, so missed opportunity there by Auckland. Next up, Canterbury. Will they be regretting letting Brett Cameron go to Manawatu? Manawatu, to me, have been the surprise package of the season so far. Pushing. Well, okay, it took a late try for them to get back within 3. Sorry, but yeah, with 3 minutes left on the clock, they're only 3 points down. Manawatu on Canterbury. Burks missed a couple of kicks. Boy, oh boy, that would have been a famous victory by Manawatu. It's still a fantastic performance for them.
Listen, and some really, really good tries. A brilliant set piece from Manawatu. The first try was scored after 4 minutes, but it basically came through from an inside ball. They looked like they were going one way, and there was a ball and there was a gap that you could have driven a bus through the middle of the defence, and Brett Cameron put a very nice little touch with a kick out to the right hand side. Canterbury got a player back, couldn't control it, but the halfback Henry was there to score the try. But then they kind of undid the work. A couple of minutes later, a kick which basically got charged down, and Fiaki, who had a very, very good game, pretty much sprinted from 50 odd meters out. And yeah, just against Canterbury, you've got to take every opportunity, but more importantly, play a little bit of field position and play them in their part of the area. Of course, Brett Cameron kept them in a game, but then we saw probably the real set piece try of the game where Fiaki was given some space on the outside and just absolutely dealt to his opposite and just showed the skill that this kid has got. I keep forgetting he's only 20 years old. Crazy.
Well rehearsed, and I think Manawatu have really put some serious thought in their preparation, and they've got a lot of clarity. So all the players, they know individually what they need to do. And I think as they go deeper and deeper into the season, their form's going to get better. They'll understand their roles better. So it's a beautiful thing. It's wonderful to see this. And hopefully, long may this consistency continue. And we might, I'm not trying to jump the gun here, but I don't know, maybe we might see a little purple patch, something special starting 2021 with Manawatu, the Turbos.
Yeah, just before I go, last week, Seamus Hurley-Langton, the number 7, was very, very impressive against Counties Manukau, and once again, he put in close to another man of the match performance. And we're talking about a player who was drafted out of Wellington Club Rugby, so full credit to Peter Russell, the head coach, for basically having the eye to select that sort of talent unwanted by Wellington. But then again, why not when you've got the likes of Duplessis Kirifi running around? But I'm pretty sure we'll have plenty more to say about his form in that Waikato Wellington game.
And there lies the answer. Pete Russell, very smart operator. I mean, if you recall some of the stuff he did with the Magpies when he was at the Hawke's Bay. Yep. Awesome coach, really knows his trade. And this is at NPC level. This is what coaching really comes down to: getting your tactics right, understanding the game plan, understanding the opposition, understanding your resources, and every game looking to continually improve. So great stuff, Manawatu. I know it's early days, but let's hope this continues.
Now, we're going to go quickly through the next one because we're late. But Hawke's Bay beat Otago. Good second half performance. Ranfurly Shield defence, nicely done. And it'll be interesting to see if Hawke's Bay end up putting all their best performances in at home in their Ranfurly Shield games and just can't get up for the away games because last week wasn't so good. Yeah,
listen, for Hawke's Bay, full credit to them. They lost Ash Dixon late in the piece to basically, I think he had an injury that had a little bit of poison involved, or of sorts. Listen, it took Hawke's Bay a while to get going. Otago had a big wind behind them, started the game really real, and I think they may have even got out to 10 points to 0. Beg your pardon, 7 points to 0. Then Hawke's Bay hit back with quite a soft try to Nerai Formai. But the problem is for Otago, for all that field position, territory and ball, they just weren't scoring enough points, and I think they probably missed a couple of their key players. Jonah Nareki, of course, out for the rest of the season, and of course Josh Ioane not playing. And just to add insult to injury, Hawke's Bay, who'd really only visited the Otago 22 twice, pick up a try to Lolangi Visanier, and once again the defence with a little kick in behind, nowhere to be seen. And I think going in at 14-7 at half time, we know Hawke's Bay are also a second half side, and I think the ink was probably already penned by then.
So I'm glad I said we'll zoom through this one and rather than the full breakdown from you, Stephen. But I'm trying to get past them.
Hey, got to give all these unions some love.
The Waikato versus Wellington. Then I did a preview on SENZ for this one, on the old radio, real radio, and I said, "Oh, look at this! This is one that will be pretty close. Two very good midfields. Only for Wellington to zoom out to a 34-8 lead at half time." So I put on Twitter, "Don't listen to my preview because it's wrong." Only for Waikato to come back, and it was a close one in the end. So, see, I didn't know what I was talking about after all that, but really impressive. In that first half, a discipline from Waikato, real problem. Karifi having a great game. He comes off early in the second half. Ruben Love comes off, who's also, I think, someone that we've sort of learnt about this year through Super Rugby, but we're learning that he's a decent operator at this NPC level, where he's got a little bit more time and is getting some good experience in. So it was so what with those two off, Waikato cut out their disciplinary issues and zoom through for the win. A massively impressive comeback. You could have got Waikato at $23 at half time at the TAB. When they were, I say 8-34 down, and they even had a try held up or disallowed when Xavier Rowe did a little sort of quarterback sneak and got held up over the line. So really impressive performance by Waikato, and it's if you have a listen to Ross, Ross Filippo. I called the county's head coach Ross Filippo. Sorry, got the wrong name for that one.
Tyler Vare.
Thank you. Tyler Vare was the county's one from earlier, folks. So yeah, corrections corner there. And Ross Filippo here, real bubbly guy. Well, especially after a win, but he's going to get himself in trouble for talking about referees. So have a listen to my interview with him after this, because Bella would yes, him and Bella would get on great down the end of the bar with a couple of points.
I've been on a few courses with him where I've loved every moment with him. So what can I say?
So we were talking about Waikato versus Wellington in the Farrer Palmer Cup being game of the weekend, but this was also an absolute cracker. It was a real treat for me to be at FMG Stadium for both of these games this weekend. Any sort of final points, Stephen?
Yeah, I watched. Obviously, really disappointed with Northland's shift. They're having a lot of injuries at the moment.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say we've got two more about this game.
Oh, okay, about the Wellington. The Wellington Waikato game. I must admit, I didn't watch a lot of that game, but all it basically says to me is when you get momentum shifts, that yellow card it was to Julian Savia. What I saw of it seemed to have a big say in the momentum of the game, and also Duplessis Karifi.
Karifi going off was a big one.
Came off. It just basically meant Waikato just seemed to dominate that breakdown, and boy, some really good injection from the koro of the Waikato team, Liam Messon, when he came onto the park.
And the old boy got a try as well. At the same time as that, I think was Southland versus Bay of Plenty. Bay of Plenty getting a big win over Southland. They're 11-31. Not a surprise, really. Bay of Plenty, a premiership team that we're expecting to make the finals. Southland, a championship team that we're not expecting to get promoted. So, look, I think the kind of result we expect when we look at the quality of cattle, the spending that power that they both have, unsurprising there. Now, unfortunately, due to lockdown, we're probably not going to get to have a chat with the with Southland. Steve and I are both hoping to be at Harbour versus Southland this Friday, but to catch up and find out what's going on down there. But I think you've had a quick chat with the head coach down there recently.
Yes, I certainly had a brief chat with him on Monday, just to talk about the game, and really at the end of the day, it came down to really little moments for the Southland team. They the 67th minute, they were at 17-11 when Marty Banks kicked the penalty, but it was only a minute later where they basically didn't mark up on the blind side, and probably the star turn of the match, Fijian winger Onisi Ratavai, who was just an absolute beast. Whenever he touched the ball, he was part of the Flying Fijians squad when the Fijians took on the All Blacks. Boy, just an absolute brilliant pickup because he gives them real X factor out on the wing. He had a big say in the first try that was scored by Mitchell Karpik, and 10-0 with a bit of a breeze behind them in the second half, Southland. And once Ratuvai went over in the 68th minute to push it out to 22-11, Caleb Trask with the conversion, that pretty much was the game. And of course the yellow card to Charles Alemalo for basically he got cleaned out on the side of the ruck, but unfortunately retaliated by putting his man into a player's face on the ground. So he received a yellow card. And of course the replacement Broughton, who was making his debut for Bay of Plenty, pretty much iced the game in the 78th minute to take it out in the conversion to 31 points to 11. Sometimes rugby is so cruel. I think Southland deserved to win, to be a little bit closer with all the effort that they put in. But listen, credit to the Southland side. They are not going to be an easy side. They are no longer the easy beats they were 2 or 3 seasons ago. Dale McLeod's done a wonderful job putting the squad together. But I think the issue for him is probably just having depth when you go in against these top sides and being able to stay in the contest.
And this last one, well, there are 2 ways of looking at this last game. I'll take the view that Stephen won't.
See you later.
Is look, Taranaki last weekend, round 1, beat Hawke's Bay 33-19. They beat Northern 48-14 in this one. So you can either say, look, Taranaki are better than we were expecting coming into this season, or you can say Northern are in a right mess, losing 54-7 in the opening weekend. Again, 14-48 here. They're minus 81 points after 2 games, points difference. You basically a side in form against a side who are totally out of form, and this is kind of what this is kind of what happens, I think.
Yeah, you summed it up very well, and also a Taranaki side who, if you look at their squad compared to last year, I know their CEO Lawrence Corlett and probably part of their board looked at having enough depth and quality. Boy, they've brought in some depth, and boy, have they brought in some pace as well on their wings as well, with Kini Naholo, younger brother of, and of course is Joseph Ratamovuku Nepkins as well. That's the sort of pace, and they've got another Fijian boy. Name just escapes me at the moment. So yeah, they're just ticking all the boxes at the moment. Northern had a good start to the game, scored an early try, but then absolutely butchered a try that could have been out 14-0. It was just a simple draw and pass. But I think once they started having a few injuries, lost Tamati Tua, who's been out, had shoulder surgery last year, but this time he's got a hamstring out for 3 weeks. They started Sam Knock, who's carrying a soft tissue injury at the moment. He left at half time, and unfortunately, once again, you're looking at your next lot of depth, and some of that depth, having already lost Ranger for the season, Tom Robinson unlikely to return this season. Yeah, they're really pushing the proverbial uphill, and it would not surprise me if they're already planning for season 2022, and that's in and around the depth. Very, very harsh lesson to learn.
So Tikia Solomone, I think, is the Fijian wing you're talking about off the bench. And hopefully I got something near the right pronunciation there, folks. Keegan Aholo's been there for a few seasons now. The problem is this is the first time he's managed to be fit for 2 games on the trot. He has a very good relationship with the Moon Boot, unfortunately. Our main hope has got to be that he stays fit for this season, because yes, lots of potential was in the Chiefs squad last year, not this year, but again ended up being injured all season, and so hence wasn't held on till this year, because he just has not played much rugby recently, as he's been on the physio table the whole time. So hopefully you've got to remember that Taranaki have also lost Sean Wainui, who's been an important player for them over the last few years. They have lost players as well. So I say a team that I didn't have much hope for, because I thought they'd lost some of their Super Rugby players, but looked to be playing well for each other, and seem to know each other, which I think is going to be the important thing.
I was going to say, Paul, if you look at their pack of O'Neill, Riccatelli, Bent, Josh Lord, Tupuvai, Jesse Pareti, Peter Sawakula, and Tom Florence, there's a lot of Super Rugby experience.
Yeah, true.
In that pack, and if you look at the back, Ratomavuki, Netkins, Pero Feta, Tay Walden, they've all got Super Rugby experience, but they also, you kind of look at their bench, they're probably a little bit light on the bench, but they've also got Slater, who's played a bit of Super Rugby as well. But once again, I think they've pretty much put a line in the sand that they're the team to beat in that championship division.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to lose the eye now as he heads off with the All Blacks, even though Ian Foster has been saying that what they're going to probably do is leave a couple of players back to get some more game time. I don't know if the eye will be one of those or not, but he'll be a massive loss for Taranaki. So Akula, remember last year, I guess he was involved with the All Blacks, so they've got him back this year as well. So that's like having a new signing, even if he isn't, because he's been around for a few years for them. But yeah, it's cracking, as you say, cracking start to the season by the Naki, especially as we thought Otago would be the pace setters, and say they really came up short this weekend. So looks like say Manawatu and Taranaki going to be the leaders, the pace setters to keep an eye on this one. Thank you very much, boys. It has been an absolute pleasure. If you're not up to much, we might try and do something on Thursday, since people might still all be in lockdown, and you'll be getting bored at home. So maybe we'll try and do some sort of show on Thursday, folks. I know Stephen won't be because he's an essential worker. He'll be out and about working, but Boa.
No, I'm working from home. But hey, guys, just want to say life can be pretty fickle sometimes, and listen, thoughts go out to Tautai Kefu and his family. I mean, to say, it just goes to show in life it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you are, but listen, by the sound of it, he's on the recover, and let's hope we see the big man out coaching Tonga again. I'm pretty sure he's getting a lot of support at this stage, but once again, you never know in life.
Yeah, someone that I interviewed only a couple of weeks ago, after the Cook Islands game, and also after the Samoa game as well. So the first Samoa game that Tom Islands did. So yeah, so someone that we've talked to, it really brings it home as to what can happen. So stay safe, folks. Do lock your doors at night as well, as stay safe from the COVID. Thank you very much, boys. Thank you everyone for watching and joining us. Don't forget to keep an eye out on Thursday. As I say, my Aaron Lawton interview will come out then, and do go check out that interview with Cameron Bell as well. That's out there on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Not Twitter, and the podcast.